Hi, this is Dr. Valerie. By now, you might have heard about our legendary virtual retreat, The Thriving Experience. That's coming right up. And in this video, I'm going to do some Q&A and speak about what to expect. The virtual room is filling up, and the first frequently asked question is, how much does it cost? And the answer is, it's free. It is free to attend. $0, nothing that you got to pay to be there. And yet, it is a huge commitment. It is a big commitment to show up with your energy, with your time. And I also want to speak to the reality of it. People are feeling in this virtual world pretty zoomed out. So to think about sitting in front of the computer for 2.5 days for the weekend, that's a lot. That's a big commitment. So let me speak to that for a moment. First, yes, that's been our reality. Second, what is really dragging us down is that we're running a lot of collective energies in our system. And being on Zoom and being online, being so connected virtually on social media, that actually keeps on feeding and bringing us into that network of collective anger, collective grief, collective anxiety, and it's running in our system 24/7. Yes, especially when we sleep and tap into that collective unconscious. So, what will actually teach you to do is how to step out of that and how to move these energies out of your system so that you can restore your authentic presence in your body. How about that? And you will restore your capacity because so much of your capacity is taken up by the collective, huge collective grief, anger, anxiety that's up right now. And that's what you're going to learn. One of the few important things that you're going to learn and you're going to experience. In addition to that, we pay attention to how the experience is set up. We pay attention to breaks. We pay attention to taking care of our whole being. And the feedback that we've been receiving about our previous event, the Thriving Experience that we held in May. Check out the hashtag The Thriving Experience on Instagram for some highlights. Part of the feedback that we've been receiving that's been really our favorite part is that women did not expect to experience such intimacy, such deep transformation, and to be in a room of such amazing women. Women have said this is the most amazing group of women I've ever been a part of, in the room with. And what makes it so amazing is that we create a safe and sacred space. We have our ways of creating it. Part of it is truly attracting the community who are ready to wake up, who are ready to wake up in prison of intergenerational collective trauma that are referred to as patriarchy stress disorder that has been keeping us imprisoned for centuries, for thousands of years. They're ready to wake up. They're ready to call things what they are. They're ready to see that it's not their fault. They're not broken. There's nothing wrong with them. And to go beyond these patriarchal mandates of how we're supposed to look, sound, show up, not shine too brightly, etc., and dive into their authentic presence. And showing up in that authentic presence is so refreshing because that's what makes this group so amazing. Truly, we are so amazing underneath the layers of patriarchy induced prohibition on shining too brightly, prohibition on vulnerability, prohibition on being ourselves, being in our brilliance, etc., etc. So many prohibitions. And I'll speak to a huge prohibition on our own time. That's a really big one. Mm, that is something that comes up for a woman who is considering coming to the experience because it resonates with her. She senses the transformational, life changing, world changing potential. But then she pauses and she says, "But I'm not sure if I can set aside this time for myself." The question itself speaks to the why behind this retreat. And your answer to this question defines the trajectory of your entire life. Is your answer driven by the PSD induced prohibition on owning your time, energy, and money? Remember, women, we didn't have ownership of our own bodies throughout patriarchy. It's a very new thing and still, interestingly, up for debate in this day and age. We didn't have ownership of our own bodies, let alone our time and money. Yeah, even in the US, that's a pretty progressive place for women. It wasn't until 1960 that a woman could open her own bank account, and it wasn't until 1988 that a woman could take out a business loan without a male relative cosigner. Same goes for not being able to own property in her name, not being able to get a divorce, etc., etc. Yeah, that lack of ownership runs deep, and that is alone, that is what we are healing. This lack of ownership shows up in much more subtle and insidious ways these days, such as this question: I don't know if I can take this time for myself. It shows up in how you set up your schedule and in how much money you're allowed to make. Yes, allowed to make. And you know who decides this allowing? If you answered you, well, yes, and it is your subconscious. We know from neuroscience that our decisions or our actions are decided in our subconscious. Our actions are decided in our subconscious. And what resides in our subconscious is thousands of years of the trauma of oppression. And that is the filter through which those actions are decided. So if we're making decisions that are showing up as self sabotage and that are showing up in the creation of external reality that is not aligned with our deep, authentic desires, well, chances are there is trauma to be uncovered and healed. And that's why we're gathering to illustrate exactly how our subconscious is calling the shots when it comes to money. And you do know that this retreat, this experience is about money, right? That our topic is reclaiming and healing our relationship with money. All right, just wanted to make sure you knew that. In the larger context of uncovering and healing layers of PSD and other aspects of intergenerational and collective traumas. All right, so back to money. How it shows up, how the trauma in our subconscious shows up in the actions that we take. In my book, Patriarchy, Stress Disorder, The Invisible Inner Barrier to Women's Happiness and Fulfillment, I tell the story of Leslie. Leslie reached out to me to talk about uncovering and healing PSD. We got on a Zoom call and she was telling me about where she was, where she was going. Leslie is an accomplished woman, a seasoned professional, and a very confident woman. She's clearly done a lot of work, and she was in a mastermind at a very high level with a coach whose name everyone knows, invested a lot of money to be at that table, and good for her. And there she was. And she was telling me that at one of the mastermind meetings, a fellow entrepreneur heard her share something that resonated with him. And then he approached her in the break and said, "Hey, Leslie, what you spoke about, I can really see how you could help in my business if you would consider consulting for me on this particular project. And the compensation would be in the neighborhood or actually upward of $350,000. It was 360 plus $1,000. And when Leslie told me that, I got very curious and I said, "So what happened?" And she said, "What happened?" I said, "Yeah, with the project, did you end up consulting? How did it work out?" And she just gave me a blank stare, and I could just hear the wheels turning in her mind. And it soon became so obvious that Leslie just moved on. And although her mind clearly remembered that it happened, she just told me the story. But on a deeper level, she did not register that it was a real offer, that the offer was made to her, and that she could actually consider it for real. She automatically dismissed it. And basically, what happened was her subconscious, the trauma of PSD, activated. And in Leslie's case, it was PSD as the trauma of oppression. It was racism and colonialism as intergenerational traumas of oppression. We all have complexities in our ancestry, a complex interplay of our ancestral experiences that show up in how we make decisions without even realizing it. So she didn't realize that she was making a decision, and the decision was made by her subconscious, and the decision was to run. You know, fight, flight, freeze are three core trauma reactions that our system engages in when trauma is triggered. And the trauma that was triggered for Leslie was this prohibition on being paid. First of all, her value being recognized, especially at such a high level, her value, her contribution, that ran against the trauma of oppression that was running in her subconscious, in her body, in her nervous system, in her DNA. And flight was the reaction. She didn't physically run out of the room, but she mentally did. She checked out. She didn't follow up with the person. And she checked out of the emotional experience of actually feeling that it was an offer that was being made to her, that she was worthy of a lot more than that she was being recognized for her gifts. The huge prohibition around being recognized for her gifts, her worth, her value, was being activated in her subconscious. So after she told me that, and we unpacked this as much as we were able to do on just one call, she was able to reach out to that entrepreneur. The offer was still on the table. And then her fight, flight, freeze reactions activated again, because now it was getting even hotter. Now it was even more real. Now she was being witnessed in that. And it felt like she just had to run. So she sent me a message saying that, explaining that she did reach out. The offer was still on the table, but she decided not to take it. And no, she didn't want to work on healing PSD because, and whatever the explanation was, I actually don't remember. It was probably not a good time. That's actually quite a frequent explanation whenever a woman approaches that next level of freedom and ownership of her time, of her energy, of her money, of her sovereignty, of her life. The prison guards, that's what I call these trauma defenses, the prison guards activate and they go, no, 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 you cannot have that. And then the subconscious makes the decision run or freeze or fight. And the mind catches up later and it rationalizes it. And so one of the popular rationalizations is, yes, I really want that. I really want to be free. I really want to make money and have impact on the next level of my visibility and create a life I dream of and have an amazing relationship, etc., etc., etc. Yes, but now is not a good time. But now is not a good time. But now is not a good time. Does this break your heart? It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart every time, my dear. It breaks my heart so deeply. Yes, it is Leslie's life. It is every woman's life that's at stake. But it's so much more than that, too. The freedom, the liberation of the world hinges on your liberation. Healing oppression, systems of oppression in the world is only possible when we do this healing work inside so that we can show up and we can show up in thriving, not in fight, flight, freeze, when we're not able to advocate not for ourselves, not for anyone else. We cannot be allies for others. We cannot be allies for ourselves. And our ancestors have done their best and advanced the opportunity for us so far that we now have this opportunity to own our bodies, to own our time, to own our money, to own our energy. But our subconscious hasn't caught up to this opportunity. To our subconscious that carries this trauma of oppression, it feels extremely unsafe, life-threatening, in fact, because a woman's power has always been a punishable offense, and a woman's freedom is something that threatens deeply all systems of oppression. I see patriarchy as the foundational system of oppression. It's the most ancient. Racism is a much more recent invention. But it's only possible. It was only possible because the trauma of disconnection lived in the bodies of white people already. And the oppression that white people perpetrated against other white people, men against women, different groups against different groups, that was going on. Reshma Menakem writes about it in his book, My Grandmother's Hands. What a beautiful book. He unpacks racialized trauma in white bodies and black bodies and police bodies. It is so relevant right now. If we are to heal the world, we need to heal ourselves. It's real. It's not about what you say. It's not about what you do. It's about how you're being. Are you embodying the change you want to see in the world? It starts with owning your time. It starts with owning your energy, your decisions. And we're here to help you do that. So even if you're not in a place to take this leap for yourself, because PSD, right? PSD is telling you, no, you got to take care of your family. You got to be with your kids. You got to do laundry, cook. You have a lot of responsibilities, and it's true. And oh, by the way, patriarchy is addicted to free women's labor. And because women's labor has been free for for millennia, this imprint is deep, deep, deep in our subconscious, this imprint of how much our time, energy is actually worth. Not much, if anything at all, right? So, even if you're not in a position to make this decision for yourself, take this time for yourself. Know that our participants share that what happens for them after they do this work has magnificent ripple effects that spreads ripples that spread to their families. Their children stop acting out. They experience deeper intimacy, better sex with their husbands. They have a lot more capacity to be there for others because they learn to have that capacity for themselves. So know that you showing up is the opposite of selfish. You taking that time for yourself is actually in service to the world. The change that you desire to see in the world, you must embody it first. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. The world is not going to just shift to being just and equitable and oppression free if we are carrying oppression, embodied oppression in us that shows up in the choices that we make, from little choices of how we set up our schedule to how much money we're allowed, quote unquote, to make. And these are huge, huge choices and huge issues because women don't have access to money, big wealth. We don't have access to moving the levers in the world that actually make a dramatic difference. And because we're in survival, providing for our families, our time and energy are in that survival hamster wheel. So we are no danger to patriarchy. We're no danger to racism. We're no danger to any other system of oppression, inequality. We're no danger to the earth being destroyed. We're no danger to interrupting that trend because we don't have energy, time, or money. What are we going to do? That's oppression. That's modern day oppression. That's what it feels like. Technically, we own our bodies, our time, and energy. And technically, we have the opportunity to make all the money in the world and grow wealth. But in reality, because our subconscious is not allowing us to step into that, because there is this fear, right? It's not our fault. It is not our fault. It is not our fault. We were born into this invisible inner prison. But it is our responsibility to break free because unless we do, nothing changes on the planet. Are you with me? All right. thethrivingexperience.com. That's where it's happening. thethrivingexperience.com. And I want to show with you, just for kicks and giggles, our own hesitation before offering a virtual event because we would always do these events in person. And we didn't know what to expect at a virtual event. Can we create the safety and healing and connection virtually over Zoom? Really? Can that happen? And then what we discovered showed us a huge potential that the virtual world has for this work above and beyond of what we could have expected. So I'm going to share some notes with you that I took after our event in May because they just blew my mind. Those observations of what's possible blew my mind because the virtual space turns out to be in some ways way more advantageous, has a lot of advantages over the in-person space. So check this out. Whew. So the level of comfort and safety that we can create in a virtual space and permission to take care of yourself, that would be a really tall order to achieve in a live event. Such as, think of in a live event, you would be sitting in a hotel ballroom, feeling trapped there, versus being able to go outside while still being an active participant at the event, such as what's possible at the Thriving Experience. Take your phone, take your computer outside, hang out, put your feet on the ground, enjoy, and still participate and breathe and be supported by nature if that's your desire. You can sit on the floor. You don't have to be uncomfortable in a chair. You can recline. You can curl up with your favorite comfortable blanket. You can drink tea out of your favorite mug. You can be wearing pajama pants. You don't have to worry about shoes or your shoes matching your outfit. You don't have to pack. You don't have to worry about your wardrobe. You don't have to worry about doing your nails and hair and looking a certain way. You don't have to worry about disrupting others when you feel like stepping out of the room to take care of yourself. Just turn off the camera, put yourself on mute and step out, right? Um, and then you have the ability to be heard all the time. All the time. You have a thought, you have a comment, uh, put it in the chat. And imagine in a live event, if you're lucky, you would probably get to speak once or twice during a 3 day event. And here you can share your precious thoughts and observations in chat all the time and engage with other participants. And if you don't want to be a part of the side conversations, you don't have to. But if you do, that's awesome, because in these side conversations, amazing ideas are generated, amazing connections are made. It's like having a party and at the same time enjoying the experience of the event. And we alternate between a big room and small breakout rooms, which have been our participants' favorites. They enjoyed those so much. The opportunity to be there with other women from all over the world and experience that level of safety and belonging, and also seeing and experiencing viscerally that we're all in the same boat and there is nothing wrong with any of us. So you don't have to worry about the room temperature that's uncomfortable, right? The hotel ballrooms, they always feel too cold for me, but they can feel too hot for somebody else, or too much ice in the water for me always, or not enough ice for somebody else. So we have the opportunity to have the ultimate customization of experience, which is so luxurious and which creates that safety, that embodied safety that sets the stage for a very powerful healing experience. Safety first. And then intimacy that's created with others is also instant. There are no distractions in the space. When we're working with big triggering material, the mind always is scanning the environment, right? There is this hypervigilant reaction or adaptation that's going on. So there are a lot of distractions in a real, alive environment. Not so online. You're just there. Everybody has their Zoom background. That's all there is to see. There's nothing else going on. You know, the room you're in, there's nothing to see. There's no external stimulation. So you can go deep with one another and with yourself in a very cozy and intimate environment. And so I hope you can see yourself there. You can feel yourself there. The thrivingexperience.com. I hope I'll get to see you there and we'll get to play together. And it will be delightful and delicious. And I wish last time we had the experience that we had the opportunity to see the before and after pictures. Well, let me put it this way. When we saw the faces of our participants after the event, that was remarkable. They looked entirely different than in the beginning. The stress was melted. Their eyes were bright. They were so alive and vibrant and gorgeous, just so beautiful. And perhaps this time we'll just ask everybody for their own sake not to share unless they desire. Actually, one of our participants shared her before and after photos because she's so cool and so creative. She did that. So maybe we'll ask participants this time just for their own before and after benchmark to take their pictures in the beginning and at the end, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And the experience is worth 1,000 books. What you're getting in the book, and I'm so grateful that you're reading or have read Patriarchy, Stress Disorder, The Invisible in the Barrier to Women's Happiness and Fulfillment. Thank you for changing the world with us. Thank you for diving into this conversation. But what happens at the experience is not information. its transformation. So I hope you join us for this transformative experience where we heal and reclaim our relationship with money to liberate our bodies, our time, our energy, our desires, and our capacity so that we can show up on a whole new level of thriving and help the whole world shift from survival to thriving. Survival of the world depends on women shifting into thriving because when women do, they bring everyone with them. Are you with us? thethrivingexperience.com. I sure hope so. I look forward to seeing you there. Please don't keep this a secret. Share the invitation with women you want to share this journey with. thethrivingexperience.com. I can't wait to play together.